The next step in the saga for the Bastard Jr. number 2 is, I guess, gonna be working on it some more. So as you can see, I've done some work on the number 2 Bastard Jr. I get some methods from Vanquish. These are 1-inch wheels, and I believe I'd like to go to something a little narrower so I can bring my track width in. As you can see, maybe on the overhead, on the front, I was able to use 0.25-inch spacers, wheel hexes, whatever you call them. I don't have any here anymore to see, but I had to use 0.35s on the rear, 350s, Vanquish calls them, and the track width is wider on the rear, and I don't like that. The reason why I had to is because I'm using their weighted portals, or whatever you want to call them. The portal covers themselves are machined of brass, and it has a recessed screw on the cover, whereas the stock plastics that I'm still using on the rear, it does not have a recessed screw. And you probably, maybe you can see that on the overhead. That little guy right there, it rubs on the wheels. So I'm hoping with the 0.8s I can get a little narrower track width, and I should probably replace these screws with something that's going to be recessed, or at least a smaller head. Instead of doing the full-size head like these guys, I'll switch to something that is a, what's it called? Not a pan head. Y'all can maybe let me know in the comments what that is. But the little round heads that have the smaller screws to them, or the smaller Allen key thing, you know what I mean? That could help me bring these in, because I want to get this as narrow as possible. Relatively short wheelbase on it. I believe it is currently at 12 or maybe 12 and a half. I went shorter. I built it up at 11, and the rear shocks were just, it wasn't right. So let's go through the build of what we've done so far. We got the Bastard Jr. chassis. I have the deluxe OD3 transmission. It's made for straight axles, so it's going to give me a whole lot of gear reduction on these portals. Custom printed skid that I did. We had all these different versions, which I've talked about. But what I ended up going was a forward motor mount drop skid on there. And it's working so far. I've got the motor more or less in the middle. It does not hit the links, especially with the drop skid situation. We're using 65 and 85 millimeter links on the front. Hopefully that will give me enough clearance for the 650 LP servo. We'll see. I'll bolt one up today and we will see. 80 millimeter shocks from Vanquish. And then on the rear, I am using, let's see, I believe that I ended up going with 95 and 110 millimeter links on the rear, I believe. I don't have any measuring tools to see, but I believe that's what I went with. I did some shorter ones, like I said, but the length of shocks being 80 millimeters, it jacked up the rear. The driveline angle didn't look great. And like this, I mean, it's so close to how it looked stock. And maybe a little longer wheelbase than what I wanted, but you know, you can't win them all. And I can always use a little taller tires as well. But with portals, there's so much clearance that I think it's going to work out great. And as you can see with the current roll center, there's really not a lot of axle walk, especially compared to how this thing was originally. So really liking how this build is turning out. I'm definitely liking it. A couple of things that I still need is I need the proper ball ends, or whatever they're called, the balls for the shocks on the bottom. I've got those on order from Vanquish. It's a wider one, and I could put some washers in there, but man, trying to thread a screw through with washers right next to the little pivot ball, it's a huge hassle. So I got the proper ones from Vanquish that will give us the proper spacing, and it will work out great. I also picked up these gold aluminum standoffs from, I think, Amazon, actually, of all places. And they're threaded, and that lets me not have jam nuts on the backside. And just kind of, it gives a little, like if I go for a tumble, it gives some stiffness on this. Don't really need it on the rear because we have all this cross member that's holding it together. But on the front in particular, a really big tumble, you can bend these mounts. The shock mounts just kind of like hang out there. And normal crawling, not a big deal, but we've got some pretty big crawling sections here in town that I just don't want to risk this thing taking a tumble and then permanently damaging the frame and needing to do some rebuilding. So I think that's tires. Yeah, these are the Geolander XATs from Vanquish. They feel really good. I went with the 4.5s because I wanted something a little smaller for this build. We'll see where that lands long term. But oh yeah, I did go with the aluminum axle on the front. So I thought about doing the aluminum knuckles and all of that sort of situation, but I ended up deciding on just the aluminum housing and the brass outers. I do believe I could do the behind the axle mount. I spoke on this in the last video, but I need to move the motor back by about 5 millimeters. So we'll see where this goes. I may take it apart one more time, just one more time, and put it back together. But as it sits, I think this will be fine. And then I can always do the behind the axle mount on the next build and see how that goes. So we'll go ahead and try to fit these servos. Hopefully we won't have any issues. Oh, and I got the VP horn on here, and it barely clears. You're supposed to use a 20 millimeter on these F10 portal axles, but it's a 25 millimeter. So yeah, we'll see. We will see. But we also do have the aluminum clamping horn that comes with the 650 LP. If I can get it out of the package. I think it may not clear. It's not as low profile, honestly. Come on now, there we go. So looking at it for this particular build, yeah, you know, it would probably work. I'll try it on the rear. I've already got this one hooked up for the front, so I'll use that one on the rear. All right. So which side? That side. And I don't have my tools with me. I left my tools at home, so we're using some standard old shop tools here. Just some Weeha. We're gonna bolt that in. Oh yeah, it looks like it's gonna clear. Look at that. Yeah. Oh, I guess it's got to be shoved all the way. Oh, it hits right at the top, but we'll see about articulation here in a second. It should be fine on articulation, but it does hit at full compression. But this isn't going to be a fast rig. This is going to be a slow rig, relatively slow rig. 2300 kV motor, probably going to run 3S like I normally do. Got a lot of 3S batteries. And between the ultra gear down of the axles and the transmission, we should be good. Now, I didn't use underdrive gears in this because I figured there would already be enough reduction. But if torque twist is an issue for whatever reason, then I can always install the underdrive gears in both axles, gear up a little bit inside the transmission, and that way we get a faster drivetrain speed going from the center to the axles, and that will reduce the torque twist. If you can imagine power being your torque times your speed, the more torque twist, but if we can increase our speed, then we can get the same amount of power at the wheel with less torque. And that gives us less torque twist. So we'll deal with that later. We don't need to address it right now. And I'm sure it'll be fine without the underdrive. Maybe on the next one I can go with the underdrive. So we'll see. And I don't know where the servo is sitting in the rotation, so me bolting this in before I boot up the servo and find center, it's not a good idea. I will need to take these servo horns off before I boot it up. But for now, we're just going to tighten this down and let's see. Oh yeah, just fine. Full articulation. Oh, it clears by like maybe half a millimeter, a quarter of a millimeter. It's clearing though. Clearance is clearance, man. And does it? Oh, it does not hit on either. So it barely taps. You know, as you can see, it doesn't get full compression there, but it gets full articulation, and that on a crawler is what we care about. Now, the downside, you can see the shock angles are vastly different. This is how it was set up originally. The front shock angle being much more upright than the rear is going to make it to where the majority of articulation comes from the rear at first, and then it goes to the front. We'll see if that becomes a problem. I could always do a stiffer spring in the rear. I could do more preload, which really, preload doesn't make the shock stiffer, but it will make it to where it doesn't articulate until a little later. And I mean, I'm gonna have to like go all the way down on this. Oh, and our jam nut is, there we go. Our jam nut's jamming. Jamming the radar. They've jammed the radar, sir. All right, you know, it makes it really stiff in compression, but articulation, we still have so much leverage on that angled shock that's not gonna be effective for what I'm wanting to do. Now, some other options besides making the wheelbase shorter, I could potentially make some more shock mounts. I mean, this is a steel frame. I could weld on some more shock mount placements, but I don't really want to do that, so I'm not. Up next servo. Front's looking good. So far, I must say, I'm really digging the way that this entire build has gone together. And maybe it's because I built it a few times in my life before, but I'm really enjoying how this is looking. And just the parts are kind of going together. And although I did have to design quite a few tries on our skid plate, our roll center, happy with that. I am just generally happy with how this goes together. Oh, and hey, this is actually installing to where our art is facing the right way. That's always nice. If you notice on these, oh, never mind. I was going to say we had reversed this so that, oh yeah. We had reversed that so when this is installed in a chassis mounted situation, that is the proper way up, and you can actually see it. Although it's probably covered by the chassis. There's not a lot of space since we have our heat sinking on the sides. Not a lot of space that we can push the art. But, you know, at least it's facing upright when the servo was upside down. It's the little details that hopefully work out. Boy, I wish I had my Vanquish drivers on me right now. But, you know, it's fine. It's fine. I also still need to replace my electric driver. I went home and built these links up, and it didn't even make it through the set of links, because I've redone these links a few times now. So this was yet one more set of links. There we go. Snug. All right, I'm gonna have to grab a little screw. Unless we have one in the package. We might actually have a screw in the package. Yeah, we do. But it's a different size, isn't it? It is. What about length? Yeah, it looks like a 5 would work. I'll use this big-headed 5 millimeter. Usually these shorter screws are relegated to installing motors. There we go. Oh yeah, plenty of engagement, plenty of thread engagement. There we go. Now this servo horn is pretty tight on here, so I'm not going to bear it down all the way because it's going to be a pain in the butt to pull off. But that does clear. It looks like even at full lock, it's going to clear. I haven't snugged it down all the way, but yeah, that'll work. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Now, we get this guy stretched out. If I really want to make it subtle, we could throw this into some wire loom, but otherwise we have plenty of wire to stretch. And since this is mounted on the actual axle, we can zip tie it with a little bit of slack. I'd want a service loop on the end there, but a little bit of slack all the way down that link, and it's going to hide beautifully. Or we could go up to the chassis, but I do not like the way that looks. So all sorts of room except for the battery. I'm not sure I'm going to put the battery yet, but there we go. One more step in. I have almost gotten this thing buttoned up. So once I get my rear steering linkage on here and I find a place for the battery, which I guess I could go back here with it. I really don't want to. That's a terrible place for the battery. But let's see, where else? I kind of want to use a bigger battery. I want to use something that's like, let's see, not that big. You know, this 2000, it's only 2S, but this is about the right size. What do I got here? An old 2200. You know, at least a 1300, if not a 1800, would be ideal. So something like this. I could print a little tray to slide in. Our drive shaft is going to be coming out of the center on this side. So I could do something that's kind of low, slides in and gets hidden. I would really like to make a cover, maybe even with a driver on this, because our transmission is so low that we could do it. And once I have it designed, I could start installing it on everything that's this rig, except for this one, because our transmission is way up top and in the way. After I finish this, you know, I may end up redoing that, something maybe a little more modern, because there's nothing wrong with that. However, you learn, you know, hopefully we learn as we go along. So yeah, I'll play around with this. I'll find a spot for that battery, you know, something really thin like this 2000. I could shove the transmission over. Actually, no, I can't. There's really no more room. There's no more room to shove it over. So if it's a thin enough battery, I could technically drop everything down just a little more. I mean, just a hair, and I may be able to fit something above the motor, like in there. That would be pretty cool, honestly. Oh, we got a bar in the way, but I'll do some measurements and we'll see what we can come up with, because we can't put it on this side down in there, and I don't really want it on the outside of the rig. I had previously thought about making some sliders for this rig so that I could put some electronics on the outside, because there's not much room on the inside, but I think it might be a better idea to just drop that down a little bit, but we'll see. I'll figure it out. Worst case scenario, I'm going to have something that kind of shoves in back here, and we'll have to just bias it one way or another so we can avoid the drive shaft. And there we go. Cool. A little more work is done on the Bastard Junior. One step closer, almost done to having another fun and custom rig to play with. So there you go. If you got any suggestions for this guy, if you love these gold rims, I wish I could find some methods or something in purple, but c'est la vie. Right now there's not a lot of people making purple rims. Maybe Shifts RCs. I think Shifts may have made some purple rims. I'll look around, but right now the gold looks great, I think. I also got some silver ones, and honestly, look at all that clearance. Even if I had to go with these width, you know, the 350s, that's still a lot of ground clearance, honestly. So I can complain in one hand and do something else in the other and see which one fills up first. But so far, loving it. So there you go. One step closer and not two steps back today. As always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.